You wrote a lot in your book, a lot about states like West Virginia, places that are pretty reliably red now, but that not long ago were strongholds for the Democratic Party. This is often talked about how places like West Virginia or Kentucky, not long ago were actually pretty strong, like labor blue states. Can you just give some insight into what you think happened in these states, and how Democrats can avoid failing other states like they failed, West Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, West Virginia is pretty emblematic of the process. West Virginia, if anything, was like the bluest state in the country for decades. It was almost like a one-party Democratic state up until really the early 2000s. And the short version of what happened is the Democratic Party did, what in some ways it's always done, barring moments of like mass upsurge that have forced it to do something else, which is that it, was an expression at its summit of capital, and it ran West Virginia first and foremost for the benefit of the energy extraction corporations, mining in particular, but it's changed a bit to natural gas more recently. And people's living conditions stayed bad or got worse. And there was a lot of corruption. And so it's not really that surprising that in the context of people's living conditions getting worse, if the people in power are the Democrats, you're going to blame them. And the inability of the Democrats, particularly since the 80s, to really deliver anything or even pretend to promise to deliver anything as far as like economic justice for folks, led to a situation now where the Republicans talk about class and economics far more than Democrats. And some places in which living standards have fallen, and in which I think we do have to say in which there is still the legacy of a lot of white supremacy, at least in its kind of maybe more benign. I don't think like most people are white supremacists in those countries, in those states, but there is an openness towards scapegoating that can go in different ways. That kind of, I think, healthy class anger can get directed above or can get directed below. And insofar as the Democrats did represent capital and didn't help working class folks, particularly since deindustrialization, since the 80s, the Republicans have been able to extremely effectively and extremely cynically tap into the anger and present themselves as the opponents of the status quo. And I mean, even we saw that just in the recent elections. Biden is running on a return to normalcy, but normalcy in a state like West Virginia is, people understand that to be, not, minimum, not like a extremely beneficial situation for them or themselves. And so in the absence of an alternative, some people just check out. The big story in some ways still remains that if the Democrats were able to provide some sort of compelling vision, you'd be able, at least eventually, to win over some people who don't vote right now. And you'd be able to win over some white workers who voted for Obama, for instance, but then had Obama screw them over. Obama brought together a huge multiracial coalition, including a lot of, members of the white working class who voted for Trump subsequently. But they saw their living conditions decline under Obama. They saw Obama listen to capital. And so that lends itself to all sorts of demagogy by the Republicans.